And the second, the consequence of the result of the First War of 1857, consequence of the First War of 1857 is Queen Victoria's proclamation. Queen Victoria also proclaimed, she made some announcements, she gave some proclamations, that is, according to this only the Indians will be treated. So the first point is that follow a policy of non-intervention in social and religious matters of Indians. So according to the proclamation done by Victoria, Victoria's proclamation, Queen Victoria's proclamation, the British will not interfere into the socio-religious matters of Indians, and then treat all the subjects, that is, it can be Indians or the Europeans, equally. So they will not make any kind of discrimination when it comes to appointments and so on, education appointments. So appointments will be done based on the education and ability of a person. So it will not be, earlier it was like only the Europeans were getting the higher positions, but now the appointments will be made based on the educational qualifications and their ability to work. So this was the second proclamation. And the third one, one of the point in the proclamation that Queen Victoria did, and then grant general pardon to all those who took part in the war. So in the revolt of 1857, whoever took part in the First War of Independence, they will be given a pardon. They will be given pardon and released from the jail. They were actually imprisoned, isn't it? Many of them were imprisoned during the First War of Independence. So they will all be released from the jail, except for those who had murdered the British officials. The one who had murdered the British officials would not be given pardon. Do its best to advance the industries in India. They also said, this proclamation also said that it will do best and it will help the Indian industries to advance the industries of India, and promote works of public utility, public welfare works in India, so as to ensure material as well as moral progress of the people. To ensure the moral progress of the people, the public utility works or the development works, the welfare works will be carried out for the welfare of the Indians. These were the promises that were done in the proclamation of Victoria, Queen Victoria, which was done in Allahabad on November 1st of 1858 by Lord Canning. She did not come here directly. She had given this, and it was done in public by Lord Canning. So the another consequence of the First War is this First War brought an end to the rule of Mughals and Peshwas. So the Peshwa and the Bahadur Shah Zafar, after his death, who was declared to be the Emperor of India during the First War of Independence, the Mughal rule also came to an end, as well as the Peshwa rule, the Maratha rule also came to an end after the First War of Independence. And then, so with the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar too, Mughal rule came to an end. Nana Sahib, who was the last Peshwa, who was the adopted son of Bajirao too, after the uprising, after the First War of Independence, he fled towards Nepal. So this brought an end towards the Maratha as well as the Mughal dynasty. Relations with princely states. So now, the relation with princely state is that the policy of annexation and the doctrine of lapse were abandoned. And then some of the Indian princes who still remained loyal towards the Indian, towards the British government, they were allowed to keep their state, even though they did not have the own biological children. For them, the doctrine of lapse, ultimately it was taken back, and for them, they could also, these people, they could also make their adopted children as their next successors. And in 1876, Queen Victoria assumed the title of Empress of India, and the Indian princes willingly partners or agents of British Crown, because they were promised that they would continue as rulers of their states. And one more consequence of the First War of Independence is policy of divide and rule. Right from the beginning you can see here, during the First War of Independence, you can see both, the Hindu Muslims joined together and they fought against the British. So here now they wanted, the British still, they still wanted to continue to rule over India, but now it was not as easy for them as it was before. So they had to divide the Indians. So they wanted to divide Indians based on the policy of divide and rule. That is caste, dividing people based on caste to caste, Hindus and Muslims, okay, and then rich and poor, that way, okay, against caste and caste, group and group, and above all Hindus and Muslims. So this was the one more result of the First War of Independence. So now the British, they wanted to still carry on with their administration by dividing whole of India, by again breaking it into small parts, okay. So they planned to divide and rule over Indians. So cleverly they managed to divide Indians based on caste and caste, group and group, Hindus and Muslims, so that they can make their the empire more strong in our country. Racial antagonism. So the British believed in their racial superiority, and they thought that a social distance was to be maintained to preserve their authority over Indians. So the British, they still continued this racial discrimination in our country, and they themselves showed or posed that they are more superior than the British, and they had to keep a distance between Indians, okay. So that is why they made separate compartments in the railways, okay, for them only a different compartment, and for the Indians only different. Hotels, parks, everywhere, not all, the British officials or the British and the Indians would easily enter or togetherly use those public utility places. So they brought such a differences there, and then reservations were done. So in the railway compartments, for Europeans only, it was reserved. So take for example hotels and parks, reservations, they were only reserved for the Europeans. Okay, so this is how they treated the Indians. They still practiced the racial discrimination. Okay, so racial discrimination was still practiced here. So the people, all the category of the people were not allowed, Indians especially were not allowed in the railway compartments, in all the compartments, hotels, parks and all, they were only reserved for the British. They posed to be themselves to be more superior, and they kept away Indians from them. Okay, so they kept that distance, what you call it as a social distance. Okay, and then the foreign policy, they also introduced different type of foreign policies, that is which only fulfilled their two aims, that is protection of their own their empire in India, and then expansion of British economic and commercial interests in Asia and Africa, for which only the Indians will pay the cost for implementing these policies. Increased racial discrimination. So after uprising of 1857, the racial bitterness also increased. The British that they had, okay, their superiority feeling and the inferiority feeling over Indians. So they that actually grew among the British. They used to insult the Indians, okay, and then humiliate them, and so this is how they were treating the Indians. Religious changes. Lot of religious changes were done. The British rulers declared emphatically their policy of non-interference in the religious affairs. So as I told you before, so the British, as a result of First War of Indian Independence, they will not interfere the religious matters as well as the customs and traditions of the Indians, like converting maybe, or being the trustee of the temples. All this they will not do anymore. So they made lot of religious changes, and they said they will not interfere in our things. Not only that, they also made lot of changes in the army, because why they made changes in the army is that when compared to all other sections of the society, here it was the army which was a threat to them. When you talk about the military cause and the immediate cause, you can see these are the people. The soldiers were the one who were very strong. Okay, they actually were the one who first rebelled against the British, revolted against the British. So they made lot of changes in the army so that they will prevent the future revolts. They will prevent the future rebellions from the soldiers. So for that reason, they strengthened the European troops. They brought in more and more European soldiers. Okay, the number of European soldiers in the British troops increased. Okay, it was the ratio of European soldiers to Indian troops was fixed. In the Bengal region, it was like 1:2, and in other regions like Madras and Bombay, the ratio of Indian soldiers, European troops, soldiers in the to the Indian soldiers was 2:5. And the same thing, what they introduced as a new system, it continued till the First World War. That is till 1914. The same kind of a ratio was maintained. 1:2 in Bengal, and then a Bengal army, and 2:5 in the Madras and Bombay armies. And then European troops were kept in key geographical and military positions and also to desist the Indian soldiers from rising again and again, against the British rule. The sophisticated weapons and ammunition were never placed under the in charge of the Indians. All Indian artillery units, with the exceptions of a new mountain units, were disbanded. So they now understood that if at all any kind of British the weapons and ammunitions the charge is given in the hands of the Indian soldiers, they may use it and then revolt against the British. So the British now became alert, and they never gave such in charges in the hands of the Indian soldiers. The ammunitions and the weapons were never in charge of the British Indian soldiers. And the discrimination on the basis of caste, region and religion was practiced in the recruitment to the army. So changes in the army, again here while recruiting the army also, discrimination was still done based on caste and region as well as religion. And in order to discourage the nationalism feeling among the Indian soldiers, measures were such as introduction of caste and community in most regiments were taken. So introduction of caste and community were taken away in the regiments. And the newspaper and journals, which actually played a role of inspiration to the Indian soldiers and all, that was kept away, and it was made not reachable to the hands of the soldiers. So that by reading the journals, by reading the newspapers and nationalist publications and all, it would inspire the Indian soldiers to go against the British. Okay, so to prevent the wars, to prevent the soldiers revolting against the British, so the journals and the newspapers, the publications, all these were kept out of reach of the Indian soldiers. So these were the changes that were done in the army. And coming to the next point is the economic exploitation. So the uprising of 1857 ended the era of territorial expansion and ushered in the era of economic exploitation in the following manner. So till now, the territorial expansion was being carried out by the British. Okay, like the territories were brought under the hands of the British, all those things. Till here they had brought, till 1857, all the most of the territories were brought under the control of the British. Now they were more interested in the economic exploitation of Indians. Okay, it can be the natural resources, it can be the wealth of India. All these were exploited by the British. So India was turned into a typical colonial economy, exporting raw material and importing finished goods. India was only meant to be, the typical colonial economy, for the British to use it as can provide them raw materials to export it to their country and import the same finished goods. Once the raw materials are turned into finished goods, bring it back to our country, to bring it back to the same colony in order to sell it, in order to sell the finished goods in our country as a importing colony. So only for their profit they started to use India. So treated India as a colony for their export and their import. Okay, exporting raw materials to their country and importing the finished goods from their country. The salary and allowances of the Secretary of State and members of the India Council, the civil service and military officers were a large drain on the country's resources. You know that, the Secretary of State and the council was appointed in order to take care of the administration. The salary part and all, maintenance salary part, everything now Indian, treasury or the country's resources, whatever they had to use. Okay, the British government they were now using the country's resources only in order to pay the secretary of, the government, the secretary here, okay, and the secretary of council, the secretary of state as well as the council. So no funds came from the from Britain, and no funds came from the British crown. So whatever salaries the British officials they were supposed to be paid, all went from the resources of our country. So it was large drain of our resources. Peasants were impoverished under the British rule. The indigo peasants of Bihar revolted on a large scale in 1866 and 68. Again here, the peasants and the farmers were exploited, and even the rural artisan industries such as handicrafts, spinning and weaving again collapsed. Okay, though the British crown what promised and proclaimed so many different changes and all they will do, but still they were not. It was only on theory, but nothing was brought into practice. The peasants as well as the rural artisans, the industries and the handicrafts, all these still, they suffered under the hands of the British. And the spinning and weaving collapsed. The Indians had to pay heavy interest and dividends on the British capital invested in India. So again, Indians had to pay taxes, heavy taxes. The British invested their surplus capital in India in railways, plantations, coal mines, jute mills, shipping, etc. So Indians had to pay tax, and then the tax that was paid was not utilized for the development or the welfare of the people, but then it was invested in making the railways, building the railway, plantations, coal mines and jute mills for their own profit. Okay, nothing was invested for the profit of India or for the welfare of Indians. So one more consequence that you can see is rise of nationalism. So all this together, exploitation did not stop, it still continued. So the uprising, okay, till you have to see, if you have to see, there was exploitation right from the beginning till 1857, and for that sake, the revolt took place, so the first war took place. So the uprising of 1857 was the first struggle of Indian people for freedom from British imperialism. So this uprising or the first war of independence developed a feeling of nationalism among the people, among all the sections of the people. So against the rule of the British imperialism. So now Indians, they started to understand about the the importance of their own nationalism, okay, about the nation, about patriotism. So this arose a feeling of nationalism among the people. The heroic struggle of the people who sacrificed their life during this revolt or during the first war of inspiration was like first war of independence, was like an inspiration for all the people and motivation for the people of India to fight for the sake of their freedom, fight for the sake of the nation. The feeling of nationalism started to arise among the people of India. Okay, so if you have to name, some of the people who sacrificed their life. Okay, if you have to say only, it is Rani of Jhansi, Mangal Pandey, okay, Nana Sahib, all these people if you have to see. So all these were some of the people, revolutionaries, who actually fought for the sake of the independence and then sacrificed their life. Okay, so they became like the inspiration, and they rose, the people, they rose with the feeling of nationalism, and slowly they understood the importance of freedom and independence for their country or for their own, and widening of gulf between Hindus and Muslims. So here, during the first war of independence, both the Muslims and Hindus, they showed a great enthusiasm to fight against the British government. But after the uprising, you can see that the difference or the gap between the Indian and the Hindu and the Muslims actually started to increase. This is because of the policy of divide and rule that the British, they started to practice. Okay, so though uprising of revolt, the uprising of war of independence, the first war of independence, it brought in many positive changes also, like the Indian rise. There was a rise of nationalism. If it comes to Indians, okay, rise of nationalism was their unity. People, they started to unite together and fight against the British and these things. But at the same time, it also had its own negative result, as I told you before. It had its own negative results. So divide and rule, you can see here, and the gap between the Hindus and Muslims have also increased. So these are some of the results or the consequences of the first war of independence. Let me just read out the point. Okay, consequence of the first war of independence. The first one, end of company's rule, Queen Victoria's proclamation. It brought an end to the Mughal and the Peshwas relations with the princely states, where princely states remained loyal towards the company, the British crown, and then policy of divide and rule was practiced more after this. Okay, because again now if at all the British had to rule here, they had to rule by following this policy. Okay, so policy of divide and rule, racial antagonism, where the British, they posed themselves to be more superior than the Indians. They maintained a social distance. The railway compartments, hotel, parks, and the public utilities had the reservations for the Europeans only. Okay, such kind of racial antagonism, foreign policies which were only in the protection and in the profit of the British, where the Indians suffered under this policy, increased racial discrimination, religious changes were done. Yes, that was, the British will not interfere in the religious matters of India. Changes in the army to prevent the future wars or the uprising. Economic exploitation was done more than the, expanding the territories. Now they were mainly, concentrating on the economic exploitation was done. And then rise of nationalism. One positive thing that you can see here is rise of nationalism, where Indians started to, develop the feeling of nationalism and fight for the sake of the country. And then widening. The last point you can see is widening between the Hindus and the Muslims. Widening gap between the Hindus and Muslims. This was the result of divide and rule. So these all together were the results of the first war of independence. So the changes happened, but then it also included the positive as well as the negative results. Coming to the drawbacks of the first war of independence. When we talk about the drawback of the independence, first war of independence, so I told you the revolt did not succeed. We did not succeed. We did not become victorious in the first war of independence. If at all we had become victorious and if we had drove away the British from our country, we would have got the, if we would have defeated the British, we would have got independence in the year 1857 only. But then the revolt did not succeed. We did not have victory in the war. We failed. Okay, the Indians failed. So the drawbacks, why we failed was because of the drawbacks that was there in the during the first war of independence. The drawbacks was, first one, as I told you before, lack of planning. There was no proper planning. Just because, because the revolt actually started immediately because of the immediate cause. When the soldiers were forced to use the Enfield rifle, Mangal Pandey, he resisted it, revolted, and then the first war started. So there was no planning. If at all a country or if at all a war has to take between two kingdoms or two powers, there has to be a proper planning. So lack of planning. Organization and leadership. There was no organization, there was no leadership, there was no planning. The war was not organized. There was no a strong person who could lead the war. Yes, of course, Bahadur Shah Zafar was declared to be the emperor of India, but then he could not lead the revolt. Okay, he was not the leader who led the revolt. Lack of common cause and lack of participation of all sections of society. There was no one cause for the revolt. Okay, so many different causes. Okay, which included everything together. Okay, no one specific cause. Okay, that was one reason for the failure of the revolt or the war. And then lack of common participation of all sections of this society. So I told you, I have been telling you people, not all the people involved in the revolt or took part in the first war of independence. It was only few people, like the soldiers, who suffered under the British. Take for example, when it came to political causes, not all the rulers went against the British. There were many princely states, there were many rulers who were still loyal towards the British. Okay, so they served as the loyal partners. Okay, they did not take part in the revolt. Only the rulers who were affected by the doctrine of lapse, okay, the policies of doctrine of lapse, subsidiary alliance, or the rulers who lost their palaces, like Bahadur Shah Zafar and his family, his successors who lost their kingdom based on the alleged based on the disrespect shown to them. And then Awadh, okay, the ruler of Awadh, the Nawab of Awadh. Only some people who were directly affected by the policies of the British, okay, who directly suffered under the policies of the British, they took part in the revolt. But other than that, who were happy with the British, were loyal towards the British, they did not take part in the war. They did not take part in the rebellion, in the uprising. It not only was with the rulers, it was with the officials, the nobles, the soldiers also at times. Not all the soldiers, some of them, few of them, okay. Soldiers also who were still loyal towards the British, okay, the officials, the zamindars, the landlords, who all were loyal, they did not take part. Only who were affected, who felt, okay, we are not, who felt that they were tortured, okay, they took part in the, the war. And then lack of resources. I told you, the common people, what did they fight with? They fought with the bow and arrows, the sticks, okay, the spears. These were not the weapons which they could use with the British, isn't it? Because the British had the advanced type of weapons. So ultimately, we were not, they could not resist the bullets, okay. The British were firing and these people, hitting with the sticks and bow and arrows. It was not happening. So here this was one of the reasons. Lack of resources, lack of ammunition, lack of weapons, lack of explosives, all these things. The Indian soldiers still fighting with the traditional weapons. And lack of nationwide dimensions. So throughout the country, the revolt did not take place. and it was different people in different parts. Only few community involved in the revolt and different way. Okay, some of them fought, some of them did not fight. And beginning of the movement before the fixed date. So there was no proper fixed date, or they wanted to, even though they planned that okay they will fight, okay, with a specific date also, they did not stick on to that. Okay, suddenly they started to fight against the British. So this ultimately it brought a failure to the whole revolt, and the British was successful defeating the Indians in the first war of independence. So this is the end of the lesson, children. So here you can see that you learned the first war of independence, where you learned about the different causes and then the results or the effects of the war of independence, and then the drawback of the first war of independence. So but then this war is said to be one of the important milestone in the history of India, because the most important thing, most important change that this war brought was rising the feeling of nationalism among the Indians. From here onwards, the Indians started to develop the feeling of nationalism. They started to unite together, and then they started to plan. They understood, they understood the failure, why the reasons of the failure of the revolt. Now, they understood that there should be a proper planning and organization, and then, a leadership to go against the British or fight against the British and get the freedom from the hands of the British. Though we failed in the first war of 1857, it is still considered to be one of the most important event that took place in the history of India in the freedom, to fight against the British for the sake of the freedom of our country. Thank you, children.